Canada is one of the wealthiest and most developed countries in the world, but behind the skyscrapers and scenic landscapes lies a growing crisis. Homelessness is affecting thousands across the nation, and it's not just in the big cities like Toronto and Vancouver. From coast to coast, Canadians are struggling to find a place to call home. You won't believe how bad things have gotten in some of these cities. We're counting down the 10 most extreme homeless cities in Canada, and some of them might really shock you. Which city tops the list? Stick around to find out. Whether it's skyrocketing rent, mental health issues, or the opioid crisis, the reasons behind this homelessness epidemic are heartbreaking, and it's happening right now. Let's dive into the facts, the numbers, and the stories behind Canada's homelessness crisis. Number 1. Vancouver, British Columbia. Vancouver, often praised for its breathtaking natural beauty and high quality of life, is also infamous for its homelessness crisis. The city's downtown Eastside neighborhood is one of the most well-known epicenters of homelessness, not just in Canada, but globally. The reasons behind Vancouver's homelessness problem are complex, involving a mix of economic, social, and policy-related factors. High cost of living. One of the primary drivers of homelessness in Vancouver is the city's astronomical housing costs. Vancouver consistently ranks as one of the most expensive cities in North America, with an average home price well over $1 million. Even rental prices are sky-high, with average one-bedroom apartments costing upwards of $2,500 per month. For individuals on fixed incomes, pensions, or minimum wage, these prices are simply unattainable. The housing market in Vancouver has also been affected by foreign investment, which has driven prices even higher, leaving many local residents priced out of the market. Substance use and mental health. Vancouver's downtown Eastside is home to many individuals who struggle with substance use disorders, particularly opioid addiction. The area has been hit hard by the opioid epidemic, with fentanyl and other synthetic opioids causing thousands of overdoses and deaths. Many homeless individuals in this area are also dealing with untreated mental health issues, which are exacerbated by the instability and lack of resources available to them. While there are harm reduction programs such as supervised injection sites, these address the symptoms rather than the root causes of homelessness. Government response. The government has invested in numerous housing projects aimed at reducing homelessness, such as modular housing developments and supportive housing units. However, these solutions have often been criticized as being reactive rather than proactive. Many advocates argue that there needs to be a stronger focus on mental health services, addiction treatment, and long-term affordable housing solutions. Despite these efforts, Vancouver's homeless population continues to hover around 2,100, with many more individuals considered precariously housed. Public attitudes. Public attitudes toward homelessness in Vancouver are mixed. While there are many advocates pushing for more compassionate solutions, some residents express frustration, feeling that the homeless population contributes to crime and safety concerns in certain areas. This has led to tension between different groups in the city and between the government and its citizens. 2. Toronto, Ontario. As Canada's largest city, Toronto faces unique challenges in addressing homelessness. With a population of nearly 3 million people, Toronto has the largest homeless population in the country, with over 9,200 individuals experiencing homelessness on any given night. Housing market pressures. Toronto's housing market is notoriously competitive, with prices that rival those of global megacities like New York and London. The average cost of a home in Toronto now exceeds $1 million, and rent prices continue to soar. Even for individuals with stable jobs, affordable housing is becoming increasingly difficult to find. This housing crisis has pushed many into homelessness, especially those on fixed incomes, the elderly, and people with disabilities. Shelter system overload. Toronto's shelter system is overwhelmed. The city operates over 60 shelters, but they are consistently at or near capacity. During the colder months, the situation becomes dire, with shelters struggling to accommodate the influx of individuals seeking refuge from the freezing temperatures. The city has resorted to opening emergency shelters and warming centers to mitigate the crisis, but these are temporary solutions. There has been a push for more permanent supportive housing, but construction is slow, and the need far outpaces availability. Immigrant and refugee populations. Toronto is also a major destination for immigrants and refugees, many of whom arrive in the city with little financial security. The lack of affordable housing and the challenges of finding stable employment have led to a disproportionate number of newcomers experiencing homelessness. This has added another layer to the city's already complex homelessness crisis. Government initiatives. The city has committed to several initiatives aimed at reducing homelessness, including investing in affordable housing, increasing shelter spaces, and implementing the Housing Now plan, which aims to create new affordable housing units on city-owned land. However, critics argue that these measures are not enough to address the scale of the problem, particularly as Toronto's population continues to grow rapidly. 3. Calgary, Alberta. Calgary, a city synonymous with Canada's oil industry, is facing a homelessness crisis that reflects the volatility of its economic backbone. Calgary has a homeless population of over 2,900, and much of this can be attributed to the boom and bust cycles of the oil industry. 3. Calgary, Alberta. Calgary, a city synonymous with Canada's oil industry, is facing a homelessness crisis that reflects the volatility of its economic backbone. Calgary has a homeless population of over 2,900, and much of this can be attributed to the boom and bust cycles of the oil industry. Economic volatility. Calgary's economy is heavily dependent on the oil and gas sector. When oil prices are high, the city thrives, and jobs are plentiful. However, when oil prices collapse, as they did in 2014, the city experiences widespread job losses, leading to increased poverty and homelessness. The loss of high-paying jobs in the energy sector has left many individuals unable to pay their mortgages or rent, pushing them into homelessness. Even as the city attempts to diversify its economy, the impacts of these bust cycles continue to reverberate. Rising cost of living. In addition to economic volatility, Calgary has also faced rising housing costs, though not to the same extent as cities like Vancouver or Toronto. However, for individuals who lost their jobs during downturns, even moderately priced housing has become unattainable. The city's rental vacancy rate remains low, and many affordable housing units have waiting lists that stretch for months, if not years. Homelessness during harsh winters. Calgary's harsh winters make homelessness particularly dangerous. Temperatures often plummet well below freezing, and the city has had to open emergency shelters to ensure that no one dies from exposure. The extreme weather exacerbates the physical and mental health challenges of those experiencing homelessness, making it even more difficult for them to recover and reintegrate into society. The Housing First approach. Calgary has adopted a Housing First approach, which prioritizes getting individuals into stable housing before addressing other issues such as addiction or mental health. This model has proven to be effective in reducing chronic homelessness, but it requires a significant investment in affordable housing, which the city has struggled to provide at the scale needed. While Calgary has seen some success with this model, the overall homeless population remains stubbornly high. 4. Montreal, Quebec. Montreal, the largest city in Quebec, is home to over 3,100 homeless individuals. While the city has a reputation for being more affordable than Vancouver and Toronto, it still faces significant challenges when it comes to homelessness. Affordable housing shortage. Montreal has long been considered a relatively affordable city, but in recent years, housing costs have risen dramatically. Gentrification in neighborhoods like the Plateau and Mile End has pushed lower-income residents out of their homes, and the demand for affordable housing now far exceeds the supply. This has left many individuals, particularly those with low incomes or disabilities, without stable housing. Mental health and addiction issues. Like many cities, Montreal's homeless population includes a large number of individuals struggling with mental health issues and addiction. The city has a shortage of mental health services, and those that do exist are often difficult to access for individuals without stable housing. This lack of support has led to a cycle of homelessness that is difficult to break. Cold weather challenges. Montreal's winters are notoriously harsh, with temperatures often dipping below -20 degrees Celsius. For the city's homeless population, this creates a life-threatening situation. The city has emergency shelters, but these are often overcrowded, and many individuals are forced to sleep on the streets or in makeshift encampments. The cold weather also exacerbates health problems, making it even more difficult for homeless individuals to improve their situation. Government and non-profit efforts. The city has made efforts to address homelessness through various initiatives, such as increasing shelter spaces and investing in affordable housing. Non-profit organizations also play a crucial role in providing services to the homeless population, from food banks to mental health support. However, these efforts are often underfunded and unable to meet the growing demand. 5. Edmonton, Alberta. Edmonton, the capital city of Alberta, has a homeless population of over 2,800 people. Like Calgary, Edmonton's economy is closely tied to the oil and gas industry, and the city has faced similar challenges during economic downturns. Economic challenges. Edmonton's economy has struggled in recent years due to fluctuations in oil prices. The loss of jobs in the oil sector has had a ripple effect throughout the city, leading to increased poverty and homelessness. While Edmonton's economy is more diverse than Calgary's, the city still relies heavily on the energy sector, and economic instability continues to be a major contributor to homelessness. Housing affordability. Edmonton has faced rising housing costs in recent years, though it remains more affordable than cities like Vancouver and Toronto. However, for individuals who have lost their jobs or are living on fixed incomes, even modestly priced housing can be out of reach. The city has a shortage of affordable housing, and many individuals are forced to live in shelters or on the streets. Harsh winters. Like Calgary, Edmonton experiences extremely cold winters, with temperatures often dropping below -30 degrees Celsius. For the city's homeless population, this creates a dangerous situation. The city has emergency shelters that provide refuge during the winter months, but these are often at capacity. The cold weather also exacerbates health problems, making it even more difficult for homeless individuals to recover and improve their situation. Government response. Edmonton has made significant efforts to address homelessness through initiatives like the Housing First program, which aims to provide stable housing to homeless individuals before addressing other issues like addiction or mental health. The city has seen some success with this model, but the demand for affordable housing continues to outpace the supply. Local advocacy groups have called for increased investment in affordable housing and mental health services to address the root causes of homelessness. 6. Ottawa, Ontario. Ottawa, Canada's capital city, has a homeless population of over 1,800 people. Despite its status as a government hub with relatively stable employment opportunities, Ottawa faces unique challenges in combating homelessness. Government workers and housing costs. Ottawa's economy is heavily driven by government employment, which generally offers stable incomes. However, this has also contributed to higher housing costs, as government workers can often outbid lower-income residents for rental properties. The city has seen a rise in luxury developments, while the supply of affordable housing has stagnated. This dynamic has left many vulnerable populations without access to affordable accommodation. Immigration and refugees. As a welcoming city for immigrants and refugees, Ottawa has a growing population of newcomers who face barriers to stable housing. Many struggle with low-paying jobs, language barriers, and limited access to resources, which can increase their risk of homelessness. Refugees often rely on temporary housing, and when these arrangements end, they may find themselves with nowhere to go. Indigenous homelessness. Indigenous people are disproportionately represented in Ottawa's homeless population. Historical injustices, such as residential schools and systemic discrimination, have led to intergenerational poverty and homelessness among Indigenous communities. Despite efforts to address these issues, Indigenous people in Ottawa often face additional barriers, such as discrimination in housing and employment. Support systems and challenges. Ottawa has several organizations and initiatives aimed at addressing homelessness, including shelters, food banks, and outreach programs. However, these services are often underfunded and overwhelmed by demand. The city has implemented a 10-year housing and homelessness plan, but progress has been slow, and advocates argue that more immediate action is needed. 7. Halifax, Nova Scotia. Halifax, the largest city in Atlantic Canada, has a homeless population of over 700 individuals. While the numbers are smaller than in larger cities, Halifax faces significant challenges in addressing homelessness due to its unique economic and geographic factors. Rural migration. Halifax has experienced an influx of people from rural areas of Nova Scotia and other parts of Atlantic Canada. Many of these individuals move to the city in search of better opportunities, but they often find that the cost of living is higher than expected. Without access to affordable housing or stable employment, some end up homeless. Seasonal employment. Halifax's economy is heavily influenced by seasonal industries like tourism and fishing. While these sectors provide jobs during peak seasons, they leave many workers unemployed for months at a time. This economic instability contributes to poverty and increases the risk of homelessness for low-income individuals. Housing shortages. Halifax has experienced a housing crisis in recent years, with skyrocketing rental prices and a lack of affordable housing options. Gentrification in areas like the North End has displaced many low-income residents, pushing them into homelessness or forcing them to leave the city altogether. Community support and advocacy. Despite its challenges, Halifax has a strong network of community organizations working to address homelessness. Groups like Out of the Cold and the Mi'kmaq Native Friendship Center provide essential services to the homeless population, including emergency shelters and outreach programs. However, these organizations often struggle to meet the growing demand for their services. 8. Winnipeg, Manitoba. Winnipeg, the capital of Manitoba, has a homeless population of over 1,500 people. The city faces significant challenges in addressing homelessness, particularly due to its high poverty rates and extreme weather conditions. Poverty and unemployment. Winnipeg has one of the highest poverty rates among Canadian cities, with many residents living below the poverty line. The city's economy has struggled to provide stable, well-paying jobs, particularly for individuals with limited education or skills. This economic instability has contributed to homelessness, as many residents are unable to afford basic necessities like housing. Indigenous homelessness. Indigenous people make up a significant portion of Winnipeg's homeless population, reflecting the ongoing impacts of colonization, systemic racism, and intergenerational trauma. Many Indigenous individuals face barriers to stable housing, such as discrimination and a lack of culturally appropriate support services. Affordable housing crisis. Winnipeg has faced a shortage of affordable housing for years, and the problem has only worsened as rental prices continue to rise. Many low-income residents are forced to live in substandard housing or face eviction, pushing them into homelessness. The city has made efforts to increase the supply of affordable housing, but progress has been slow, and the demand continues to outpace the supply. Winter challenges. Winnipeg's harsh winters, with temperatures often dropping below -30 degrees Celsius, make homelessness particularly dangerous. The city has emergency shelters, but these are often at capacity, leaving many individuals to sleep in unsafe conditions. Cold weather also exacerbates health problems, making it even more difficult for homeless individuals to improve their situation.